In 1660, Samuel Pepys started keeping his famous diary. Over 2/3 of the great city of Constantinople burned to the ground, killing 40,000 people, and King Charles II was elevated to the throne, restoring the monarchy of the United Kingdom. "18 years of Puritan rule had done much to change society in England. Large-scale public entertainment such as theatre and tilting had been prohibited, and whilst the aristocracy might not have objected to the passing of the costly and potentially dangerous tournaments, the wider public missed the entertainment they provided. While the Civil War had proved beyond doubt that swordplay was still a valuable skill to possess, due to a combination of deliberate suppression and growing distaste for personal violence, the previously strongly held right of every Englishman to bear arms had begun to decline. The wearing of ostentatious weaponry became something only done by the higher social classes. There are no records of prize playing for the 30 years before the Restoration, and so when calls for public displays of martial prowess and tests of skill that were formerly common began to grow, there was a problem. The Masters of Defence had disappeared, and there was no organisation with the knowledge or experience of organising and hosting such events. There were no students aspiring for higher rank, and no masters with the power to confer those ranks. However, this was too good an opportunity to be passed up on by a group of ambitious Englishmen. Former soldiers, unsuccessful tradesmen, and anyone with the courage to do so banded together to fill the gap. Adopting the formerly honoured title of Masters of Defence, they reclaimed the now anachronistic weapons of the past and posted their own bills of challenge. They did not, however, adopt the strict rules and orders of the long since past guild. Formerly, prizes were to be played in the presence of any who wished to attend. The test of skill and knowledge they represented was designed to be public. However, the new prizes were challenges between self-styled masters in private arenas, where admission was only open to those willing and able to pay. The old system of testing physical competence and academic ability with examinations and open bouts with foiled and blunted weapons became displays of courage, endurance and charisma with staves, cudgels and sharp swords. In the space of a few short years, the complex, detailed martial grading system of England had been replaced by a gladiatorial show designed to make money. In 1664, the French writer Monsieur Samuel de Sorbière wrote, "I must not forget to mention among the diversions of the good town of London, those the common people take from time to time in seeing the gladiators. Usually these gladiators are fencing masters or their assistants who, as much as to advertise themselves as to try to profit by something more substantial than hard knocks, issue challenges and offer 20 to 30 Jacobuses to anyone who will fight with them. The money is deposited with a third party to be paid to the person accepting the challenge. The challenger takes whatever money is paid at the doors of the amphitheatre, which sometimes amounts to 2 or 3 times the stake he's given to his antagonist, depending on the number of people who pay for admission. They fight with sword and buckler, dealing each other cutting blows, but I fancy there is collusion between the combatants to make the play last as long as possible, for they give up most cheerfully on the first sign of bloodshed. Besides, their sword blades are not sharpened, though in any case they fail not to deal one another some terrible thumps." Interestingly, though, Pepys would seem to disagree somewhat with de Sorbière's claims, and as he was writing of his own personal experiences in a unique cipher to maintain his professional and social dignity, it suggests that perhaps the Frenchman was relying on word of mouth rather than direct experience. Pepys says, "I, with Sir J. Minns, to the Strand Maypole, and there light out of his coach and walked to the new theatre, which, since the King's players are gone to the royal one, is this day begun to be employed by the fencers to play prizes at. And here I came and saw the first prize I ever saw in my life, and it was between one Matthews, who did beat at all weapons, and one Westwick, who was soundly cut several times both in the head and legs, that he was all over blood, and other deadly blows they did give and take in good earnest, till Westwick was in a most sad pickle. They fought at 8 weapons, 3 bouts at each weapon. It was very well worth seeing, because I did till this day think that it has only been a cheat, but this being a private quarrel, they did it in good earnest, and I felt one of their swords and found it to be very little, if at all, blunter on the edge than the common swords are. Strange to see what a deal of money is flung to them both upon the stage between every bout. But a woeful rude rabble there was, and such noises made my head ache all this evening. So, well pleased for once with this sight, I walked home. This was no one-off. His diaries are filled with descriptions of visits where he saw fighters wounded and bleeding heavily. Another French writer, a few years later, Monsieur Jovan de Rochefort, confirmed this. He said, "Nevertheless, the tall one struck his antagonist on the wrist, which he almost cut off, but this did not prevent him from continuing the fight, after he had been dressed and taken a glass of wine or two to give him courage, when he took ample vengeance for his wound. For a little afterwards, making a feint at the ham, the tall man, stooping in order to parry it, laid his whole head open, when the little one gave him a stroke which took off a slice of his head and almost all of his ear." It's clear that the new version of prize playing satisfied the public's demands for recreational violence as entertainment, and that while the trappings of the prize playing of the past were maintained, it was accepted as a continuation of the former tradition. By the start of the 18th century, gladiatorial combats had become a standard feature of life in London and the wider country. The enterprising fighters of the 1600s, such as Matthews, Turner, and Westwick, by resurrecting weaponry such as the sword and buckler, halberd, and falchion for nothing more than entertainment, however bloody, paved the way for the fighters of the future. The brave, ambitious swordsmen who were willing to risk serious injury for the chance of riches started a direct lineage that gave us the pugilists of the Regency period. Fighters like Broughton, Slack, Mendoza, and Cribb, with one man standing proudly like a colossus over the transition from prize player to prize fighter. James Figg. But that's a story for another time. If you've enjoyed this ever so brief look at the time of the stage gladiators in the Stuart era and would like more videos like this one, please hit the thumbs up and let me know in the comments. And perhaps consider heading over to Patreon and supporting me there. And to those of you still here at the very end of the video, fight team!